All right, well in today's video, I was hoping to give you guys a bit of a property tour. We haven't gone over that yet, so I'm gonna do this in probably two parts. First, we're gonna cover the traditional garden area right behind me here. And then off to my right is a bit of a mini orchard, so we're gonna check that out. And then finally, we'll hit up the food forest proper in the back acre where the magic's gonna happen. So let's check it out. So one thing to note before we enter the garden is it's a bit overgrown. The previous owners of the house were obviously selling it earlier this spring. We moved in a month ago, very, very busy. As a result, lots of weeds, so you'll see that. This area is gonna be more of a traditional vegetable garden, so not like the food forest, but we'll plant tomatoes, cucumbers. We're gonna plant that stuff in the back too. But this stuff's gonna be in the ground, in the dirt. I'm probably have to till up all the soil to get the weeds out, so it'll be pretty familiar to most people. One of the cool features in this area is this shed right here, which you can see. There's also a fence surrounding the orchard, another fence around the actual garden area to help keep my furry friends out. And finally, within the garden area, there's a trellis already in place, so we can grow cucumbers, green beans, any kind of climbing varieties we're gonna explore growing up there. So I'm excited to see that. And so is Stella. Looks like she's ready to go in the garden, so let's go check it out. Okay, here we are in the vegetable garden. As I said, it's full mostly of just weeds. If I'm gonna pull these all out, it's just not gonna happen. So what we'll probably have to do is rototill it all up and start from scratch. And it's probably not gonna happen this summer. This is the end of June, beginning of July. Here in Southwest Michigan, the growing season goes into definitely September, but not a whole lot beyond that. It starts to cool off. Another thing that we have to consider is the previous owner put this black tarp material down everywhere. It's just covering the whole garden, which I'm sure was great for weed suppression once upon a time, but no longer is. What's kind of fun in here is playing a bit of detective. So I get to find things like this, which would have been an old corn stalk. So that shows to me that we can grow corn here most likely. If I look around here somewhere, I can find old tags from things that were previously planted. So this is a zucchini squash. Zucchini should grow. There's tons of tomatoes all throughout the area. I did take a quick minute just yesterday to throw a few seeds in the ground. I looked for things that were gonna grow in 60 days or less. So zucchini, cucumbers, peas. I should be able to get a crop out of them. You can see right here, I threw some leaves on top real quick. Additionally, behind me right here, you can see this cool arbor trellis arch area with some raised beds alongside of it. And I did plant a few peas and cucumbers in there, and I'm actually looking forward to that feature a lot. However, it also, like everything else, is very, very overgrown. Finally, I have stuck a few perennial plants in here, kind of as a bit of a holding area, and also just to get something in the ground until we can get back into food forest. So let's look at those. So right here in the corner of the garden, I have 3 blackberry plants. This is the thornless black apple Apache variety. Hey Gertie. These will probably be one of Gertie's favorites right here, if she can get in here. You can actually see there are a few berries growing on 2 of the plants right now. So maybe we'll get a handful of blackberries this year. Does that sound good? Yeah, sound good? Right here next to the blackberries, we have 3 blueberry bushes growing. These blueberries are the high-yielding blueberry North Blue variety. According to this tag right here, it's going to make huge blueberries. Excited about that. These plants are a bit smaller. Blueberries probably aren't as prolific as the blackberries are, but there's one right here. Another one struggling along right here. Looks like this one's been stepped on, probably by one of the dogs. It's not great. You know what I'm gonna do? Let's take this little sprig right here, this shoot off the blueberry. Let's stick it right here in the dirt. This is the laziest attempt at propagating a blueberry ever. Let's see what happens. Here we go. We got some mulch too. So check this out. What a cool feature we have here. This arbor, this trellis going all the way up and over, arching down. And you can see we actually have some beans drying. Here's a couple from previous years. If I crack the seeds apart, oh, they're completely destroyed. But what that means, hopefully, is we can grow black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, whatever you can think of, right over here, and dry them and harvest them. It looks like the previous owner also did me another favor yet again. There's a soaker hose right here along the raised beds. So before we till up this whole area, I'll have to identify where all these soaker hoses are at. I don't know if you can make out just behind me, here above my hand, there's, I don't even know what to call it. Maybe you can help me identify it. Some kind of tube with a soaker hose going in it. My best guess is that this is for flowers or herbs or lettuces or something like that. So I don't know if I'll utilize that or not. We'll have to see. Moving on, we have some raspberry bushes planted next to me. Again, as with everything, very hard to see amongst the weeds. But there's one right here and two more next to me. These aren't taking to the soil quite as quick as the blackberries are, but they're doing all right. I can see new growth on them. This raspberry variety is called Meeker. We'll talk a lot about raspberry pruning in a future video after these things actually grow so we can prune them. Tucked away here in the very corner of the garden is just two of the little trees and plants that I was able to take from my previous home. Right here we have a cranberry bush, very small. It might even have pretty little flowers on it. Yeah, look at that. And right next to it is a hazelnut tree. This thing's a trooper. I do not know if it will live. It was broken about in half. It used to be about 3 inches tall. Now it's like 2. It was broken in half during the move. And when I planted it initially, 2 years ago, I actually thought it died. And it came back after breaking it as well then. So we'll see if this hazelnut tree survives or not. If it does, I would love to transplant it for a third time and put it back in the food forest. I know I keep talking about weeds, but look at, this is ridiculous. These things are practically as tall as I am. Well, not quite, but it's just insane the amount of weeding that I'll have to do in here. It'll be starting fresh. Finally, tucked away here in the final corner of the garden, we have a few more raspberry bushes. These ones are pretty special. These ones were from my parents' old house, and they gave me some when I transplanted them at my previous house, and now I was able to take a few more and bring them to this location. So they've moved a lot, but these are the raspberries that I knew and grew up with as a child. So hopefully a few of them take. Got a couple in the ground looking like they're doing okay. So we'll see what happens. So here behind me is what I'm calling the miniature orchard or the home orchard. And one of the cool things, again, that was left for me was this map or key or chart of the different varieties that were planted here, because as we'll see, a few of them have tags, but not all of them. However, we will also see, I don't know how much I can trust this, because some of the tags on the trees don't match what's on this map. So let's go check them out. Here in front of me is the only pear tree currently on the property. This is a Kiefer pear, according to our cheat sheet. I don't know a whole lot about pears. One thing I do know is they have this tendency to grow very vertical, which we can see right here. Everything that's above my head, I'm almost 6 feet tall, so this is 6 feet right here. Just put on a good 2 feet this year. It's 8 feet tall, but this is all new growth right here, all vertical. So I'm pretty impressed with the way this lateral branch comes out here. I don't know if this was weighed down perhaps with a milk jug or something, but I like that. We'll have to keep an eye on this and make sure we keep some airflow here as this tree grows. But it looks pretty healthy. I don't see a whole lot of coloration or disease issues on the leaves, so pretty excited for this Kiefer pear. This other tree next to me is a little bit smaller, only about 5 or 6 feet. This is the only plum currently on the property, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but this is the Coe's Golden Drop Plum, C-O-E-S Golden Drop Plum. I don't see any fruit on it this year, but the leaves look gorgeous. Nice new growth, several inches put on everywhere. We've got a nice structure started here, so I'm pretty excited for this one. We'll talk about pruning a lot, especially in the off season in the winter. Not that I'm an expert by any means. One observation I do have here in the center, which I'll bring and show you, is it looks like this was cut. If it was just going straight up, we call it a central leader. By cutting here though, it kind of flares out, we make more of a vase. And now we get to the most prolific trees on the site, apple trees. This one next to me, according to our cheat sheet here, is a Brayburn apple. You can usually find these in a grocery store. And I do see at least one fruit right here. There might be a couple more inside, but with any luck, we'll get to try Brayburn apple this year. These guys growing down here at the bottom are called suckers. Several of the trees have these growing, and we're gonna have to cut those all off at some point in time, sooner rather than later probably. Behind the Brayburn is this leaning tower of apple tree. I don't know, it's a terrible joke. This is a Honeycrisp apple. I'm definitely going to want to stake it and try and correct the position a little bit. In general, I don't want to stake too many of these trees. I want these trees that are planted in the forest to be strong enough to grow on their own, to withstand the wind that's going to come through here, any deer or animals brushing against them. But this one looks like it needs our help, so we'll have to put a stake in the ground and try and correct this, go for more vertical growth. There is lots and lots of rusty colored speckles all over the leaves on this tree, so we'll have to watch it going forward. This smaller apple tree is probably the tree I'm most excited for. It's called the Spittin Berg, and as I keep telling all of my friends and family, according to the internet, this Spittin Berg apple tree was rumored to be Thomas Jefferson's favorite apple. So I think that's pretty interesting. We have a bunch of heritage varieties here from not only older North American and US varieties, but as we will see once we hit the back of the food forest, there's some varieties from France and the Netherlands and other regions around Europe. And there is one lone little apple on the Spittin Berg. I'm really hoping we get to try that this year. This tree next to me and the one behind it are pretty interesting. They are a 3-in-1 variety. So they are a Fuji, Granny Smith, and Honeycrisp hybrid combination tree. You can see the branching structure here down at the base. We talked about staking before. This one next to me actually has a stake in the ground with no string or rope attached. So it was staked at one point in time. Might try and get that up again just to hold it up a little bit. Or perhaps in the winter we could prune this tree to favor branches coming back the other direction to try and balance out some of the weight on this tree. This tree to my right is the final apple tree we have in the mini orchard, the home orchard. This is a Winesap Apple. Probably the tallest tree in here actually, or at least the tallest apple tree. There's no fruit on it, it looks like this year, maybe next year. We do have some yellow speckled coloration in the leaves. Bring one in here for you to see. That's something to watch, something to learn about. We'll talk a lot about pest management and the philosophy that I'm going to use here in future videos. Let's check out the 2 peach trees and 3 cherry trees we have just over here. So these are our peach trees. This is an Alberta peach in front of me, and behind me is the O'Henry peach. They both are very tall, so they have good growth at the top, but they also both are missing a lot of leaves toward the bottom. I am not a peach expert, I'm not quite sure what that means. I suspect though this is something that I'll be pruning off in the off season. I don't see a reason to leave dead growth on here. And if I scratch at one of these branches here, we can see the cambium layer is just brown, not green, which means there's no more life in those branches. So those are gonna get snipped off. I don't see any peaches up in the trees, which is disappointing. I would love to have a peach this year, but there's always next year, right? The peach tree behind me here, the far one, the O'Henry peach, lots of root suckers toward the base. Those are all gonna have to get pruned off. Before I get to the final set of trees, I just wanted to touch on this. There are 4 blueberry varieties planted in here, and my hope, judging by this netting here, which I assume is bird netting, is that means these are prolific blueberry plants. So there are several varieties in here. There are only 1 or 2 tags. I do not know what they are, and to be honest, it's a bit hard to get in here right now, so I will look at those varieties at a later date. But there are blueberries on them right now, so another month or so here, towards mid or end of July, we'll be trying fresh blueberries. Behind me are 2 of the cherry trees, and there's one off to the side of the camera. The one off to the side is a Rainier cherry. Very good looking tall tree. These cherries are all exhibiting a straight upright growth. I don't know if that's normal for a cherry tree, but they look nice. There's no fruit on any of these, which again I'm disappointed by, but I'm judging these are probably 3, 4, 5 years old, so all of these trees should really be producing, if not now, then in the very near future, hopefully. This tree right here is the black Tartarian cherry tree. And this is an example of why I don't know if I can trust this map, because according to it, this should be a Rainier cherry, that one should be a Black Republican, and the far one should be a Stella cherry. Instead, the far one is a Bing, this is a black Tartarian, and the one next to the camera is a Rainier cherry. Along this whole fence row, the previous owner planted what I believe is a plant called Elderberry. It's really pretty white little flowers on here, and I believe this was planted as an offering or sacrificial plant to the birds so they wouldn't eat the homeowner's blueberries. These are edible for humans as well, so we'll definitely try them this year, and I'll let you know what they taste like. The only thing people have told me is that they've heard of elderberry wine. I'm not in the winemaking business, but that could be interesting. The final thing planted here in the mini orchard and vegetable garden area of the site are grapes. So, as we've seen throughout this tour, a lot of cool stuff on this site. There's some grape trellises, if that's the proper term, already strung up here with some wire for these to grow up. Only 2 of these are on our map. So this smaller variety next to me must be newer. According to the tag, this is a Somerset seedless grape, which is pretty cool. This one next to me, according to the map, is a Niagara. However, the tag says it's a Concord grape. So it must be a Concord. And the final variety at the far end no longer has a tag on it, but according to our site map, it is a Edelweiss or Edelweiss variety. And this one actually has lots of grapes on it. So these are really cool. You can see which one of the flowers on each cluster is actually pollinated. And these have grown in size since I've been here for the last month, so we should get fresh grapes this year. I have to learn how to prune grapes. I have no idea, but as you can see, it's really coming all the way down along this wire here, and it looks like this thing has grown, oh my God, I don't know, 12, 18, 24 inches, and this looks like new growth just from this year, maybe longer. So that'll be exciting to learn. Well guys, I think that concludes it for the tour. I'm going to call this property tour part 1. We covered the vegetable garden and the home orchard on the property. Both very cool, lots of interesting stuff, lots of interesting features. In part 2 of this video, I'm going to take you back to the pasture meadow grasslands area that you saw in the channel introduction. And that's where the food forest proper is really going to be. That's where we're going to do a lot of the work. That's where we're going to plant 100 trees, maybe more, 500 varieties, I don't know. It's going to be a spectacle to behold for sure. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in the forest.